Hello again, and thanks for joining us. Today, we're joined by Dr. Wanda Polzin Holman, who is working with Little Warriors out of Alberta. Um, Dr. Holman, can you please describe a little bit about who you are and the work that you're doing with Little Warriors?
Sure. Thank you for having me today. I am the CEO at Little Warriors, and Little Warriors is a national charity. We specifically work with children, teens, and families who have a history of child sexual abuse. So, on one end, we support treatment at the Little Warriors Be Brave Ranch, and then we also have some online and virtual programs as well as a prevent it program.
Can you describe a little bit about the work that you're doing, first with the ranch and then with the programming?
Sure. So, our Little Warriors Be Brave Ranch is a unique facility. As far as we know through our research and scientific council, we are the only evidence based episodic treatment center for children and teens in the world who specifically focus on child sexual abuse trauma treatment. We serve children. We have a children's program for ages 8 to 12, boys and girls, and we also have a teen program for 13 to 18-year-olds. Additionally, at the Be Brave Ranch, we have an intensive family program. So we support families to work with their child or teen in the perspective of working from a systems perspective with the family, but also looking at intergenerational trauma as well.
So I want to get to the programming part of it, but you mentioned a couple things there, scientific and evidence-based. Has that always been the approach that Little Warriors has taken? And maybe I'll let you answer that, and then I'll come back with a follow-up.
Sure, it's really important to us at Little Warriors that the work that we do is evidence based. And so, what I mean by that is that we work in collaboration with various um, researchers and folks that are trained specifically in mental health and trauma and addictions. We have a committee that is our research and scientific council who works with us to have measurement based outcomes. We do pre-post measures for every episode of care that we provide children, teens, and families. And so our goal in that is to be able to share the information, is to be able to produce and publish research papers showing evidence for certain types of treatment and for the work that we're doing. We don't just want to subjectively say we're doing a good job. We want to be able to show in our outcomes that things like depression, anxiety, post traumatic stress disorder symptoms are actually reduced as part of the treatment approach.
How long have you been taking this evidence-based approach with Little Warriors and the work that you're doing up at the ranch?
So we've been collecting pre-post measures for as long as I've been there. So I've been at the ranch for just over 8.5 years. So we have been doing that in collaboration with a group through the University of Alberta, but we have also been working with a program called Green Space, who work specifically in measurement-based outcomes.
And I guess in the time that you've been there, have you seen maybe the evidence that you collected in the first few years of your tenure? Have you seen its impact and how it's changed the way that you're running some of the treatment programs?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, part of what our goal is in collecting the outcomes is to be able to look at ways that we can continually improve. So, when we are getting feedback from children or teens or their caregivers, we take that into consideration as we continually develop our program. So, a good example of that is that over the last 10 years, there's been a lot of changes with regard to certain types of interventions, and we continually improve and build upon those. And each time that we change or add something, we are looking to ensure that we're measuring whether that's made a difference. So at the Be Brave Ranch, we have various types of therapy. So we look at things based on the individual. So we have individual therapy and group therapy. We offer family therapy. We also have different interventions for the children or teens. So we have art therapy and music-based therapies, animal-assisted therapy. So we very much try to look at different ways that we can support the child and the family to regulate themselves, to understand themselves, to reflect, and also support themselves beyond just the treatment at the ranch.
It may seem self-evident, but I'll ask it anyway. You mentioned these different groups and you mentioned sort of younger people and families and teens. Um, can you is I'm assuming there's a difference in terms of the type of programming that these folks are receiving. Can you maybe just give a description about how a teenager might be different in terms of the treatment they require than, say, a younger person?
Yes. So in our children's program, obviously, because of different developmental levels, we offer different types of programming. I would say that overall, the framework, our clinical framework, is the same. It's the same for the children and the teens. The way that we offer our programming and maybe the depths to which we begin to talk about things. So a good example is that we tend to see more teens who would have some addictions issues versus 8-year-olds. Not that we haven't seen 8 or 9-year-olds who have experienced that, but the depth to which we can have those conversations and the depth to which we go into that is very different for children versus teens versus the family or caregiver program.
And I guess that supports this kind of evidence-based approach that you've taken where you can learn and iterate and develop.
Absolutely. And we, really look at the feedback also that's given to us. We operate in cohorts. So each cohort develops relationships within the group. And as part of that, each cohort, although we have the same clinical framework, operates and has a slightly different experience.
Now your tenure with the organization kind of goes back prior to COVID, and I'm wondering, with the problems that you're trying to help people work through, has there been a shift? Are you seeing more people coming through with obviously with the sexual abuse and challenges and addiction issues post COVID to pre COVID? Has there been a shift in sort of the way your work is needed?
I think it's a great question, Craig. I think we've seen a few things. First and foremost, we've definitely seen an increase in things like anxiety and depression, and kind of a sense from children and teens of a hopelessness since the pandemic. There's definitely been a shift in that to some degree. We've also seen, as a result of the pandemic and as a result of people having to communicate and go online for things like school, but also social connections and gaming, we've seen some very significant concerns with regard to how children and teens are now being groomed online. So we're seeing, significant shifts with children and teen being at risk with regard to their gaming platforms, their social media, anything that they're interacting since COVID in a very different way.
And I guess, you know, you're taking care of individuals after the problem has occurred. Do you have some best practices or maybe some folks that you're working with that are helping assist education around how to prevent children from being groomed online and these types of things?
Yes, so we have our Be Brave Ranch, which primarily focuses on treating children and families after a traumatic situation or situations have occurred. But we also have what's called our Be Brave Bridge program. So it's an online program that teaches families, teaches caregivers, but also supports teens who may have more information that they're wanting to get about this, or where they're not needing the same type of intensive interventions. On the other end of the spectrum, from a prevention lens, we have what's called our Prevent It program, and it's an online program. It's a 90-minute online certificate program, and all adults, I would highly, highly recommend that all adults take this program. It's very important that parents, caregivers, we teach daycare workers, teachers, community workers, anybody really who's an adult should understand the myths and should understand the signs to pick up on, and then how to support children or teens if there is a concern of someone who's been sexually abused. And it's free. We offer it free. We also, across Canada, have facilitators that can come and do programs in person for the Prevent It program. We continually update that program, and we've just actually in the last 6 months updated that program to include further information around some of the online platforms and things like sextortion and things that are concerns and risks for children and teens.
So I'm going to come back at the end and give you a chance to kind of give everybody the information. But you mentioned it's available online. Let's make sure that if people are interested, where do they find it?
Everything is on our website, so it's littlewarriors.ca. It's under our programs, and again, the program that is free and that I would highly recommend for any adults is called Prevent It, and they can do it online or in person.
Right. I want to come back to something that you said earlier in terms of your work being maybe at the leading edge or a little bit more on the innovative side. Um, and you're obviously sharing this type of information with other groups across Canada, but also I would suspect around the world that are working in the same space. How much interaction is there between folks in different regions sharing this type of information and learning from each other and best practices? How often do you guys get together? Do you chat? Is it just, hey, we've got a challenge? Because we want to solve this problem not just for children and families in your area, but for quite frankly everywhere.
I think that there's many ways that we can share information for sure. In our space, there's a lot of child advocacy centers across Canada, for example. And so we are able to share information. That being said, every province, every place, every community is a little bit different. And so, for example, we see a lot of children and teens who are coming from remote areas, and the resources that are available in remote spaces versus in larger cities is significantly different. So I think we do our best, and certainly at Little Warriors we're involved in various working groups. We're involved also in a 3-year action plan, most recently, a policy framework that we are pulling together stakeholders from the community and folks that are really interested in this area to put forward recommendations to support a better, a different way forward.
Maybe this is a bit of a shifting of the gears, but you mentioned earlier evidence-based, and you mentioned making sure that your work is having impact. Um, when people support Little Warriors, are they looking for that kind of alignment that they can see that their support is actually going to supporting the cause? And then part B of that is, how many families are you helping in a given year?
So to answer your first question, I think people who are donors, we have donors, first of all, who donate in various ways. We have donors and volunteers who support us through providing information through our Prevent It program, for example. We have people who provide expertise and time and specialized labor out at our Be Brave Ranch. So we have a Be Brave Ranch that's 120 acres. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of upkeep with that. We also have donors, obviously, who commit and support financially. And I would say that our donors very much want to make sure that their contributions are meaningful and they're wanting information and knowledge about how we operate our programs and our evidence so that they're having a significant impact. So just in the last few years, we worked with our scientific and clinical counsel to look at this specifically in terms of a social return on investment. And the data that came from that research was that for every $1 invested in Little Warriors, there's a social return on investment of $11 across all of our systems. So this obviously impacts. Um, our societies, our communities, our families in very significant ways because we're saving, taxpayers. We're creating different changes and trajectories in families and in communities. That's able to be measured from a perspective of the justice system or the education system or child and family services or addiction. So we absolutely know that when children and teens and families are getting the proper interventions, things that are making a difference, it does have not only an impact on this generation, but it does have a potential impact to change family systems for generations to come.
And how many people are you seeing through the ranch, maybe on an annual basis, if that's a sort of number that
Yeah,
you track?
so we have the capacity at any given so the way that our program works is that we have a capacity to have about 28 children on site. We have 28 beds. So every 2 weeks, that's how our cohorts work, is that every 2 weeks we have a new round of children or teens coming into our program. So some of them are in their first round of therapy because we have 4 rounds of therapy. Some are in their second, third, or fourth. So each year, in terms of bed capacity, we're seeing about 250 children in those beds in the episodic treatment center at Brave Rach. That being said, we're only measuring that child. Oftentimes, we've had families, for example, who there's been one child, but we had a single mom who had 8 children. So we were involved with that mom and the other 7 children. So that's not specifically measured, although we're starting to take those things into consideration. And then we serve anywhere between around 3,500 to 4,000 um, people through the Prevent It program across Canada. But we also have people who have taken the program in the United States, Australia, Hungary. So we're serving hundreds of people each year, thousands actually.
So I think there's a lot of people who are gonna be surprised to hear those numbers, and maybe they're hearing it for the first time, and so, but I also understand that you're doing some in-person events coming up in both Edmonton and Calgary to build awareness. Can you maybe talk about those and, plug the dates a little bit?
Yeah, thank you. We Each year we have our Be Brave luncheon. So we have our Edmonton luncheon on May 6th from 11:30 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. And then in Calgary on May 8th. And we're really excited this year. We have a top-notch speaker. It's Elizabeth Smart. So I think that anyone who is, over the age of 30 probably very much remembers Elizabeth Smart's story. So she's going to be coming to share her story and share a little bit about how she has continued to heal and grow and build her resilience. So again, that information is on our Little Warriors website. We also have uh, a fundraiser in Vancouver. There's a group that has been supporting us for 5 or 6 years now, and they're called the Unbeatable Warriors, and they, connect with us in terms of, challenging ourselves, and the money raised from that program comes directly to support children from across Canada to attend the Be Brave Rach, and that is at the end of April. All the information's on our website.
So you've mentioned a few different ways. I mean, I'm thinking about people maybe in Sydney, Nova Scotia, or Fredericton who may say, this is Little Warriors is a long way away. It's in Alberta. Um, what can I do? You've mentioned some volunteering opportunities. Can you maybe just give a quick recap of how can people get involved to help solve the problem that you're all collectively working on, whether it's volunteerism or fundraising or gifts of dollars? What are some of the ways that folks can get involved? And I'm sure all of that's on the Little Warriors website.
It is on our website, but you're right. There's so many ways that I think that all of us can contribute in different ways from across Canada. Like I said, just taking the Prevent It program, and educating yourself about what is happening out there. A lot of times people still feel like this doesn't happen in my family or this doesn't happen in our community. It's very clear that it's happening in all communities. It cuts across all socioeconomic statuses, cultural groups, religious groups. These kinds of things unfortunately touch all of us, and so I think that education is a really important piece. The other piece is, we have many third-party fundraisers from across Canada. So, if you own a business and want to have a golf tournament and sponsor, Little Warriors with your golf tournament, we have, numerous folks who do that for us. We have a wish list on our website. So, sometimes we're running short on toothpaste, or sometimes we have specific needs. I think lately we've had a shortage of pajamas. So we put that on our website, and, the community has been so amazing. We're just so grateful. Because the community very consistently has supported all of the Little Warriors that we serve, and if anyone is having any questions or thoughts or special ideas, I would just encourage them to reach out to us personally and have a chat as well.
Dr. Holman, thank you for taking time out of your day, teaching us a little bit more about not only the work that Little Warriors is doing and you and your clinical staff are doing, but also about the Be Brave Ranch. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Craig. I really appreciate you taking the time to share our information.